Okay, good afternoon, everyone, your students. I hope you all are doing fine. Today we are going to have a third classes of this semester. Basically, the course name is Research Methodology, right? So your course code is 6211. Okay. Before going to our the lecture of today classes, I would like to just briefly explain what is research methodology. Okay. Research methodology is basically doing any type of research. Research means refining any phenomena or any body of knowledge. Okay. So, uh, for the last two classes, we have already understand what are the types of research methodology and what are the sociological methods that can be implicated while doing a research, like starting from all the theoretical framework from the social science research. Also, we have understood from varieties of social anthropologists and sociologists, starting from the uh, positivist aspects to conflict theories, and coming to then functional structuralism, and then we also understood the interpretative understanding of social actions. So these are all a part of the social research that are very important, where you will try to understand the aspects of social science research in the subject of research methodology. Okay, so research methodology is basically a systematic way of solving a research problem. It explains how research is conducted scientifically by using different method techniques and tools. Okay, so types of research can be descriptive, analytical, applied, fundamental, qualitative research, and quantitative research. Okay, so these are all types of research. So objectives of research methodology is that to understand the nature of research problems, to apply appropriate methods of data collection, to ensure accuracy and reliability of results, to develop scientific and logical thinking. Okay, so the steps in research process, that identifications of research problem, review of literature, formulation of hypothesis, research design selection, data collection, data analysis, interpretation of results, and report writing. Okay, so these are the steps of doing a research uh, processes. Okay, steps in doing research processes. So today we are going to understand the research methods, okay, and the techniques of doing a research in the field, okay, which comprises of both quantitative and qualitative research methodology. Okay, so coming towards the lecture, coming to block 3, we come with the unit 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15. Survey, interview, schedule, questionnaires, participant observations. Okay, so let's start with the objectives of today's class. Understand different techniques of data collection in social research. Differentiate between survey, interviews, schedule, and questionnaire methods. Analyze the use of observations, techniques in real-life research, and the course outcome is that you will able to apply appropriate data collection methods in social research, evaluate advantages and limitations of various techniques, design tools like questionnaires, schedules, and interviews, interpret data collection through different research methods. Okay, so what is survey methods in 11 or in the unit 11? Survey is basically done to understand the large questions of the populations. Okay, so it may use questionnaires or the structured interviews to get the findings through surveys. Okay, Survey is the method of collecting data from large populations. Okay, as I have already said, it helps to understand the attitude, opinions, and behaviors. Okay, so what are features of survey method? Basically, large simple size, sample size, standardized questions, quantitative data collections, cost effective and time consuming. Okay. So advantage and limitations. Advantage are that coverage, wide coverage, easy analysis. Limitation, response bias, limited depth of information. So as you know that in terms of survey method, it is done when you try to study the large population or the wide areas of any given topic. So it can cover a whole area when you do a survey method. Okay, so it is easy, it is wide coverage. However, it may have some responses bias and limited depths of information, because as survey method is a very wide range of collection, obviously there is a lack of interaction, much interaction or physical interactions, which led to the depth of information that may be occur from the field. Okay. Next, we come to unit 12, interview. Okay. So interview, as you know that it is basically the direct method of data collection. It involves interactions between researchers and respondent, can be structured, semi-structured, or unstructured. Okay, so interviews can be both quantitative and qualitative. When you do a structured method, you have a very structured quantitative questions to understand the interviews. Okay, so structured interviews are basically taken when you have already objectives and hypotheses to find out about the field. However, in terms of unstructured interview, it is basically some open-ended questions you try to arise while understanding any social phenomena, any topic in the research field. So this method is very important while understanding like folklores, festivals, and personal narrations or meta narratives. All these are very important while doing a unstructured interview. However, in semi-structured interview, you have the pattern of questions as well as there is an open-ended questions that you try to take up to understand the field objectives of what you try to find out in the field. Types of interview may be structured, unstructured, semi-structured, and focused interview. Okay, so structured, as I have already said, focused, structured interviews have questions, pattern of questions already set for the interview. So you don't go beyond that questions. That question is fixed and it is not exploratory in nature. It is more of an descriptive and explanatory. Okay. And however, in terms of unstructured interview, it is more exploratory and there may arise more questions, more outcomes, more open-ended questions to understand the particular phenomena or particular knowledge of research that a researcher take up in their research fields. Okay, semi-structured interview may be a structured interview with some set of questions that may be open-ended interview questions that may arise and both exploratory and it may be explanatory as well in terms of semi-structured interview. Focused interview is basically done when you do an interview in a face-to-face in any cases of interview. Okay, so it may be live interviews or it may be somewhere in the news channels or somewhere in the news reportings when you do a focused interview of a particular phenomena that you are trying to take up. Okay, advantage and limitations. Advantage is that it gives the in-depth informations. It is also flexible. However, limitation is that it is time consuming and sometimes due to the interacting process of a meta-narratives or open-ended questions, there may be a biasness of the interviewer while doing a study on a particular given topic. Now, coming to schedule, you know that a collections tools filled by the researcher. Okay, so in terms of schedule, here the researcher has already pre-conceived, pre-planned questions to acts in the field, and it is basically done in a very rapid manner. When it is done, suppose in regard to looking at the literacy rate of a particular society or particular tribes or particular caste, this may be done. Okay, this schedule may be done because there are already set of questions that you frame, and that that questions which are framed are to be asked, and it is fixed, and it is already pre-planned questions that are to be asked to each group or each individuals, okay, that are targeted for the interviews. Okay, so this schedule is more accurate and more reliable because it has a set of questions which is similarly given to each of the informants. Okay, advantage and limitations. Advantage is that it has a high response rate, clarifications possible. However, it is costly and required great investigators. Since this is a schedule, you need to frame a very structured question, very pre-planned questions while doing a research. So it needs a very trained investigators to do this such kind of research. Now coming to Unit 14, questionnaires. Questionnaires is a written set of question respondents fill it themselves using survey. Okay, so questionnaires is a major set of techniques or tools that is used, very important in terms of interviews, in terms of structure, in terms of survey, or in terms of schedule, because questions are being set. Questionnaires are being set to understand any social problems or any kinds of social issues of a researcher. So they set solo questions that respondents need to fill up. When they fill up, then it is analyzed through the analytical tools used by the questionnaires. Okay, so the set of questions is already given towards the respondent to understand the any social phenomena. Types of questionnaire may be open, closed, and mixed. So when it is closed, it is already fixed. It is mostly a descriptive. It is not exploratory in nature because the question sets are already fixed. That questions needs to be asked, not outside of the context. So there is already a the question in terms of open can be what are the what, how, why. All these can be an open-ended questions, such as explain. Okay, so in terms of close-ended, it can be describe. Okay, it can be mostly like just describe or just give the statement. I mean, in close-ended questions, it is very rare of new questions to arise. However, it's already fixed. Mixed type of question both uses both open-ended and close-ended questions to understand the social phenomena. Advantage is that it is economical, easy to administer. Low response rate means interpreting questions. So questionnaire is easy to do a field study because it can give a questions through any sources. It can go through email, it can go through WhatsApp, it can go through Facebook. So questionnaire is very easy to circulate. Okay, and it has a low economical factor also, since you don't need to be sitting with them. You can send your questions from wherever you are. Okay, so however, there can be a lack of responses and misinterpretations of questions also. Okay. Okay, now coming to participant observation of the Unit 15. So here the researcher participate in group activities. Okay, so participant observation, I would just like to give the examples that you are being involved there for at least 6 to 1 year. Okay, so you will be there, you'll be understanding the social phenomena, you'll be staying with them, eating with them, or being equipped with them. Like, for example, when you do a festival study, when you do a political movement study, basically people sometimes use participant observations to understand each and every steps of inquiry. Okay, so it is basically observation as well as the participants where one himself involved there. Okay, It is direct observation, natural environment, and in-depth understanding. Okay, so it is basically uses in qualitative research. Okay, it has a role in understanding through qualitative research. So if you there, you will be with the field, being yourself in the particular society to understand the social phenomena. Advantage is that rich qualitative data, real life insights. Since you will be there with the participants and you will be yourself be a participator there and observing from the very close range, it has a very real life insights and rich qualitative data. However, it is time consuming and researcher bias. Okay, so since you will be there with them, you will be interacting with them, there is a high chances of researcher biasness. Okay, researcher biasness, since you'll be there with them, along with them, and doing your research. Okay, so coming to check your progress, our basic questions which may come in your exams are: what is a survey method and what are its key features? Differentiate between structured and unstructured interviews. What is a schedule and how is it different from a questionnaire? What are the main advantages and limitations of questionnaire in research? Explain participant observation and its importance in qualitative research. So these are the questions for unit from block 3 that may come during your exams. So please take a note of this, and we will discuss in the next class also if you have any queries regarding the research techniques, okay, that we have discussed today. So coming to the conclusion, and I would like to summarize that block 3 focuses on major techniques of data collection uses in social research, including surveys, interviews, schedules, questionnaires, and participant observations. Surveys and questionnaires are widely used for collecting quantitative data, while interviews and participatory observations provide in-depth qualitative insights. Schedules are useful in field studies, especially when respondents require assistance. Each method has its own strengths and limitations, such as cost, reliability, depth, and flexibility. The selection of an appropriate techniques depend on the research objectives, nature of the study, and target populations. Together, these methods enable researchers to gather accurate and meaningful data for analysis. So, dear students, today we have completed the block 3. So, if you have any queries regarding the research methodology starting from block 1, block 2, block 3, then you are always welcome to bring some questions, some queries in the next class. However, next class I will be taking your block 4, which will be the last blocks of the course research methodology. I hope you all have understood clearly, and I would be very much happy if you all bring some questions in the next class. So for today, we will be ending up this lecture. Please go through the SLMs carefully and come in the next lecture. That's it for today. Bye bye. Thank you. Have a nice day ahead of you. Thank you.